Welcome back to Naples, Florida. I'm Adam Bazalgette, two-time PGA Teacher of the Year award winner down here. Longtime David Ledbetter associate. Today's subject, a really good one, Dustin Johnson and his golf swing. Stay tuned. So Dustin Johnson, wow, what a swing. I'm a big fan of his. I'm sure you are. I'd love to be able to hit the ball a little more like this guy. Well, what I'm going to try to do today is give you an overview of his swing, specifically how he's creating all this power. Obviously, he's physically gifted, but what he's doing to create it, relate to a couple of other sports very briefly that I think will really help you see how these principles work. And then at the end, I'm going to come back out and I'm going to show you a few drills that, hey, even if you can't do it at the level he's doing it, I'm in that group, you can do some of these things. And I'll give you some how-tos and some drills and some thoughts about that. Hopefully, you'll be able to apply them a little bit to your game. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Lots of free content. Hopefully, lots more coming your way. Let's check it out. So there is the great man. Looks like he's hitting a fairway wood off the tee. Dustin's 6'4", Coastal Carolina graduate. He's listed at 190 pounds. That's a pretty lean 190. And he has the ability, according to Titleist TPI, from a standing position to leap and dunk a basketball, standing still under the hoop. So he's a very, very explosive guy, and as you'll see, an extremely flexible guy. And in addition, an extremely talented guy. So let's have a look. Let's see what hits him, make him hit it so far. Now, first thing, I want you to watch the top of his hat. It's just above the green in the base of the crowd there. And you watch how much that hat has gone down. So as he starts down, he's moved probably from about there to here. Now this is pretty important. It's something we're going to touch on. It's something that Tiger is continuously vilified for on TV, but everybody that hits it a long way does this. What he has done is, as he's pushed down this way, he has basically increased this bend. We'll get into that as we go along in the video. But it does a couple of critical things. It pushes the hips back. Very powerful, loading that glute, creates a lot of space, if you like, under here for his arms. And it also allows him to push into the ground and create more pressure against the ground, which allows him in turn to spring away from the ground and to use his lower body in a more dynamic way. So watch that again. You'll see this bend increase in angle. Down he goes. He even moves down a little bit further as he's coming down. And we'll get into that left wrist here in just a second. Let's touch on that in a moment here. But just watch this. His hips are back to square to the golf ball when his club is still here. That is extremely difficult to do. But if you can do that, you can hit the ball a long, long way. So as he comes down, most people would be, and I say most people, I mean most really good golfers would be lucky to get their hips that open as they hit the ball. He's got them that open with his club head the same height as his neck, basically. So he's an extraordinary athlete, great clearance, tons and tons of speed, of course, down there. Fantastic body angles there. To do that at that speed is pretty remarkable there. So one of the things, if you look at, let's take for just a second a discus thrower. Now this guy is one of our Olympic hopefuls putting together videos to how to throw a discus. You watch his head against the top of the mountains there, and as he spins around the final time, see him push into the ground? Now, I know nothing about discus throwing. This is just a tape he made, a video on how to throw the discus with power. Look at the natural way he pushes into the ground in order to be able to spring out of there. And this is stuff you see in other sports. So again, you'll see it in great golfers. There's the push, there's the load, and there's the spring. And again, when we look at Dustin, you'll see the same sort of things. Down he goes, he's dug into the ground, and there his hips will spring up and into it, and up and around he comes. We'll look at his finish in a minute. It's a little different. Here he is from the front view. Pretty unbelievable position there. He's got just about ramrod straight arms, a ton of turn with relatively very, very little lower body turn. So he has created a tremendous amount of torque, a long backswing with no loss of structure. It's extremely difficult to do. And what happens is he now, as you saw from the other angle, he's able to really start to work that lower body, and his arms have a long, long way to go by the time he's turned his hips, and that's where he's creating so much power. And there he goes. We'll talk about his release in a minute here, because that grip and that club face of his creates some interesting dynamics. Now here's a picture. Zach Greinke. I don't know much about baseball, but I've heard this guy is one of the best there is. Coincidentally, one of my first bosses in golf, his two young kids at the time, this is 30 years ago, I used to babysit, great friends, and that daughter, the young kid, is married to Zach. So I know who this guy is mostly for that reason, but I do know that he is a fantastic pitcher. Now watch him here. You'll notice he actually lowers as well. Again, I don't know anything about baseball technique, so I'm not sure how usual that is, but it's typical for someone getting ready to throw it a long way. Here's what Dustin is doing, though. He does what Zach is doing. That is to say, he will stretch his body around here, keeping the ball back, and that creates this tremendous speed. Look at his number 23 stretch around. Look at his belt turn, and look how the ball stays all the way back here. And when you can do that, when it finally does go, you create a tremendous lash of speed. So it's a stretch, rip like that. Let's look at Dustin from the face on view. I'm just telling you, the hips of a great golfer do not move that quickly. You cannot hit the ball a long way with hip speed. What the hips can do is create that stretch and that pop so that you can translate it into club head speed. That is very, very important to realize. We're not trying to move our hips so that somehow magically the hip speed creates it. Watch Dustin. He stretches. You'll see that stretch there. The club head is still back here. And when his hips finally do stabilize and slow down, watch his belt buckle there. It stabilizes there. All the energy is now going out to the club before the hip regathers in speed. But when you can get the thing that far back, load into the ground like he has, and then as we saw from the other angle, you can get those hips and that lower part of the body ripped that open. This thing, once it does pick up speed, is absolutely going to fly through, much like Zach Greinke's pitching arm did. So a couple of looks at, we'll show you I will show you here momentarily how I think you can at least get some of that into your swing. I don't think I can get that much into my swing, but it's not that difficult to do to one degree or another. I'll show you that, but just quickly, let's touch on a few idiosyncrasies. Great posture there. We'll look at his takeaway in a minute from the other view, but the obvious thing is he bends that wrist a lot and gets that club face really, really shut for a great player, and that stays shut even into the downswing. I mean, that club face there, that's looking right back towards us. That's how shut that is. So why doesn't he hook it? Well, when you can move your body like that, and when you can keep the handle of the golf club that far ahead of the club head for that long, you're maintaining a lot of loft on the club. So the club doesn't have a chance to flip over. It's not till about, well, let's say at that point the shaft is still in line with his left arm. I mean, that is unbelievable to be able to do that long, and it's not till about there that I would say he's fully released it. So he's so athletic and dynamic, he can just maintain the loft and keep the heel in front of the toe, canceling out that odd position at the top. It's got this kind of little soft follow-through that I don't think there's much to that. I think that's just natural to him. It's just a habit for him. But great, great golf swing. You can see where he's creating the power. Let's check it out, see what we can pick up from that. Well, it's certainly impressive stuff there, and I'm going to show you a few things I think can really help you and at least apply it a little bit to your game. Let's begin, though, with the principle that one of the things he does so well, foundationally really, is he stores energy. Now, as we showed you, as he pivots back, his body lowers and grips the ground. It gives him this depth in the hips and all this energy. Here's a great way I think you could feel that. Set up and just put your arms comfortably out like you're an airplane, and as you go back, don't think turn so much, just pivot a bit and take this lead hand and stick it towards the ground a little bit like that. Use your body to do it, your whole spine. So just, if you had to put your hand on a little low bench like that, that's what I want you to feel, like you're slapping something on the ground, and play around with it. Obviously you don't want to move down that much, but you'll start to feel some depth in your hips, some increased angle here, and some pressure that you can really spring from. So again, I'm not thinking turn, I'm just making a pivot and I'm putting my lead hand down towards the ground. Now, next thing you might do, you might put a ball in this trailing hand. Most right-handed golfers are right-handed throwers, and practice getting back there like that. And now you can start to feel, hey, if I was going to really skip this ball out there, kind of an underhand toss, how could I move in such a fashion like the baseball player where I moved here independently of that ball? So I'll practice that like that. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of that load and that delay and that loading of the golf club, in this case the ball, as I come down. And then you just obviously pick up a golf club and keep fooling around with it. We're not talking hours and hours here, but it takes a few minutes to get the feel for this. This is something you can do at home, so practice your feel. There's my golf club feel. That to me approximate what he's doing a little bit. And once I'm in there, I can practice creating some speed. And I'm starting to get a little sense of what he's doing there with his body, how he's storing power. So let me offer you a couple final suggestions that I think will help you customize what Dustin's doing to your physical abilities. Now, I'm a right-hander. I'm going to put my left hand down. I'm going to grab the back of my, or the back side of my left wrist with my right hand. The purpose being, I want to use my right hand to keep some structure and width out there. We don't want that for sure. But as I go back, if I release a little tension, let that elbow soften a fraction, let this shoulder soften a fraction, a lot of times, unless you're just super flexible, you can increase the length of your backswing without completely breaking down. So that might be all I can do with Dustin's left arm, but if I release a little tension there, I can get back a little bit further. And that little extra length, as long as you've got your width, make a lot of difference in your ability to create some power coming down. So it is not necessary to have a ramrod straight left arm as you go back. Tom Watson would be, Curtis Strange would be examples of players with noticeably bent left arms, but they still had structure. And remember, as you come down, if you're transferring energy properly to the club, the release and acceleration of the golf club will pull your arms straight, much as you see a baseball player's arms straighten out as the bat gets through. So a little softness could help. And then the final thing I'd offer you is just hard to be patient enough when you come down. Almost all of us are guilty of the fact we get up there, subconsciously we're thinking, I'm trying to pound this ball out there, and we accelerate too quickly. Leave these arms away from the ball long enough to get moving. And I would do some drills where I'd go up to the top of my backswing and just practice that little move, leaving my arms right back there. It's the job of the body, as we've seen, to create energy and to snap the arms into position. So a little extra patience can be fantastic and can really